Okay, so we have been getting a lot of emails and questions, and some from our clients that are have trips set up about Paris. If you live up under a rock, then you have no clue what we're talking about. Most of the world, if you watch the news, most of the world is talking a little bit about the protests that are going on in Paris. And look, I'm going to reference it a lot. Um, so the question is, even my connections that are over in Paris, the expats that I know that are living in Paris, they've been getting a whole bunch of questions too. So I figured I'll do a video. Everybody else is doing a video about, is it safe in Paris to go? And if you do go, how do you get around? So, question number one. Yes, it is safe in Paris to go. Paris is one of the safest cities actually in the world. They have a very, very huge tourist infrastructure there, and they're not going to let anything get in the way of that if they can. Now, if you know anything about Paris, the Parisians, their culture, you'll know that this is a pretty typical thing that they do. Pretty much every spring, for some reason, they find some reason to protest. It's like part of their culture. They get off work to go protest and they still get paid. I mean, listen, this is just what they do. It's part of their culture. If you're not Parisian and you've never walked or marched in a protest, then I don't know. But it is still safe. Question two we have been getting a lot is, should I cancel my trip? If you have a trip planned to Paris during this term, this time of all the protests, they call them manifestations, all the protests that are going on in Paris, I would say no. Now, it just depends on you and what you want to do and your travel insurance. This is why travel insurance is important. Of course, you don't know a lot about travel insurance if you book through other organizations. But if you definitely book through us at this travel consulting company, then yes, you can get the best travel insurance and you can move your date back or whenever you want. But I would suggest don't cancel your trip. Again, Paris is very touristy. They thrive a lot on the tourist. The city and the country thrives a lot on the touristy part of their capital, which is Paris. So the Louvre is still open, the Champs-Élysées. I would just suggest if you go, be very vigilant and kind of know what's going on around you, okay? So there is a guide that you can get that's available. We'll talk about that later, but is Paris safe? It is. I would definitely, certain spots I'm going to tell you towards the end that I would say be cautious if that's your itinerary for that day. Make sure you kind of listen to the news a little bit. You may not even know the language, but you can kind of listen to the news and see what spots where they may be having protests, or you can ask if you're at a hotel, you can ask your concierge, because there's an app that they have in the country where they can kind of see where their protests or manifestations are going to be for that day. So if you have a particular itinerary and you want to see if I can go to the Champs-Élysées or Bastille for that day, they can look it up and see if it's okay for you to go that day. Or you just may have to be just really flexible when you go to Paris right now. Even some of the lines, the train lines aren't running like normal. So just be prepared to kind of have ulterior plans. But let's talk about the real. I know you've been seeing in the streets, I'm going to reference the video here, the picture here. There's a lot of trash because there was a strike. Okay, so there's a lot of trash in the Parisian streets. They're used to it. What you see as far as the protests that are going on, some of them have been getting a little out of hand, but all they're really burning is the trash, because the trash has been piling up for weeks, and they're slowly kind of getting the trash out of the city now finally. But when they burn when they set stuff on fire, it's usually just the trash. And it's, from my contacts that are living in Paris, like now as we speak, they're saying it's not as bad as you think. And People are kind of blowing it out of proportion. But yes, trash is everywhere in certain neighborhoods, and it may be very stinky if you go right now, but it doesn't mean that you cannot have a good time and go shopping and go to the Louvre and still go to the Eiffel Tower and still do the things that you want to do, go and enjoy the gardens and stuff. You just have to be aware of where the protests are and try to stay away from that, okay? So yeah, just stay informed. This is why you need a travel consultant, to know what's going on, to know which neighborhoods are safe. Okay, so let's talk about navigating the strike. So if you're going, some of the protests will not be safe. So if you see a gathering of people on the streets, and you're going to hear them, you're not just going to see them, you're going to hear them, and they're going down the street, just kind of stay your distance. Sometimes it's very interesting if you want to kind of engage and ask them if you speak French, or you can ask them, parlez-vous anglais? A lot of French people speak English, so you can ask, parlez-vous anglais? And someone will say, oui, or no. Basically, they speak English, and you can ask what's going on, what's your vision, why are they protest. It's a very unique time. If you're going to visit Paris, right now is a very unique time to go, because you're going to see the very authenticness of the French culture. They love to protest. They love to protest in the spring. I don't know why, but they love to protest in the spring. And they're very passionate people. They're very passionate about their reforms. Right now it is about their reforms. They're very passionate about their liberty. Anytime you try to change something with the French, they're not going to go for it. Not up front. You really have to kind of push and pull with them. But just stay away. It is part of the French culture. If you smell smoke, definitely go the opposite way. That's probably because they're burning trash, okay? They have not been getting that violent, but the police are out and they are dropping tear gas. And if you do not want to smell tear gas as a tourist, if you smell any type of smoke, go the opposite way. You'll be fine, okay? Again, have ulterior plans. Have a plan A, B, and C. If you can't take the train, you may have to take the bus. If you can't take the bus, you may have to just stay in your local neighborhood. I would definitely say one thing about Paris is that it's very, sorry, my notes were in. It's very walkable. It's a very walkable city. So if you stay kind of somewhere centrally located, you'll be able to still go to the Louvre, the Luxembourg Gardens, the Opera House, the Champs-Élysées, all the shops and stuff that they have. You'll be able to go visit all of those and all the museums that they have fairly safely, okay? Just, again, if you're staying at a hotel, you can ask the front desk or the concierge what is going on today as far as the manifestations, which is the protests. They can tell you the pocket areas to stay away from. If you are getting an Airbnb, you have to do a little bit more work and pay attention to the news. And there is an app. I don't know the name of it, but it was recommended. If you want the name of that app, DM me. I will let you know that you can download. It is in English, so you can read it in English as well in French. It'll tell you what's going on, where they're having the manifestations for that day, the protests for that day. Okay, so know your neighborhood, okay? Learn your neighborhood by walking it, okay? The city's very authentic. It's a work of art in its nature. So just have a plan A, B, and C, and you'll still have a great time. Okay. So let's talk about places to avoid. The places that you probably might want to avoid is the Bastille. Okay. This was recommended like 2 days ago. The Bastille. It's where they're having a lot of protests. The Champs-Élysées. I have noticed there was a couple there. Again, it's certain days that they have these protests at certain locations. So if you ask or you jump on the app, you'll be able to find out. The Tracamino, I know I'm saying that wrong. I am going to write it on here. Stay away from that. The Plan de la Concorde. That's where most of the protest is happening right now, because it's across the street from the National Assembly, and that's where they're doing all the reforms, and that's where people are protesting against. So stay away from the Republic as well. That square is where they're doing a lot of protests as well. So there's just literally like 4 or 5 places that you kind of want to stay away from. And then just have your wits on. The French people still want the tourists to come. You know, they depend on this. The restaurants are still open. The drinks are still flowing. The museums are still open. The tours are still happening. The bike tours and all that stuff is still happening. And they want you guys to know that Paris is still open. This is part of the French culture. And you just have to be a little bit aware of what's going on and what's going on in your neighborhood. But we have a brand new guide for major cities right now. We only have 2. We have Paris and Greece, where we have a guide and an itinerary where you can get those from us. They're downloadable PDF format. So if that's something that you want to use, it'll tell you the best restaurants, the best neighborhoods to stay, where to go, and we can actually give you an itinerary, 3-day, 4-day, 5-day itinerary to kind of plan everything out for you. But yeah, that's what we do here. We want to make your trips doable and available, even if you've already booked your stuff. Okay, you can book through our travel consulting company, but you don't have to. If you want to just get our guide and our itineraries, that's totally fine. You want to book a travel consulting session about where you're going, what's the best places to eat, what's the best places to do, firsthand knowledge of tips and tricks and things to bring and things not to bring, and cultural norms, because you don't want to get to another country and don't know what's accepted and what's not accepted. That's what we do here at Starlife Travel and Events. We book events in country, out of the country, and then we want to make sure we provide a lot of information to make sure you guys have a really, really good time. So Paris is safe. Don't fret, mon frere. Go have a good time. And be a part of the culture. If you go, this will be a very, very good time. You love the French culture. This will be a very good time for you to go, get to talk to different people, feel their passions, find out what's going on. The city's a little stinky, but if you can get over that, you'll have a good time. Okay? It's not business as usual, but it's still a good time. All right. Till next time. Peace, guys.